striving to keep you informed and entertained. We are the Far East Network, Philippines.
The top priority for Clark officials this morning was getting people safely out of the area.
This morning's eruption could be seen for miles as ash poured out of the crater for close to 2 hours.
Believe it or not, right now it's not even 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Good evening. I'm Navy journalist Christine Vida.
And I'm Air Force Sergeant Ted Northrup. Tonight we'll step back in time to early June when the event that changed our lives took center stage in world news, the volcanic eruption of Mount Pinatubo.
We'll start with the early warning signs that led to what many call Black Saturday. We'll look at the massive evacuation and its effects, as well as the base-wide cleanup and recovery efforts.
Also, we'll look ahead to the future of the bases in the Philippines and how the effects of Mount Pinatubo played an important role in the negotiations process.
If you're at home, start your VCRs. This next half hour will be packed with vivid memories, some scary, some sad. But for all, this program will highlight the extraordinary efforts of the military community in the Philippines and how we survived Mount Pinatubo.
Petty Officer Bill Houlihan begins with the volcano's earliest signs of volcanic activities.
When U.S. officials first became aware of the volcano's early warning signs, they immediately called on experts to assess the volcano's potential hazards. Soon the order was given. Clark personnel were to head for Subic Bay, an area expected to be a much safer haven. Clark dependents and non-essential personnel began a slow procession to Subic, where Bay Area residents opened up their homes and facilities.
I don't believe that I've ever seen an operation like this, where one entire facility is in effect emptied into another. And it shows extraordinary grasp of logistics, great spirit, and I think that both the communities are to be congratulated.
The decision Clark officials made to evacuate couldn't have come at a better time. Only hours after personnel began their exodus to Subic Bay, the mountain erupted for the first time, giving us only a glimpse of what the weekend held in store. Clark's mission essential personnel headed for safer ground at the Dow Communications Complex, where Major General William Studer, Commander 13th Air Force, spoke with pride of the operation so far.
There was no hesitation. No one said, I wonder what I'm supposed to be doing. Everybody reacted properly. They didn't panic. They moved in an expeditious manner to take care of any and all of their friends that might have been involved in security posts around the base to ensure that there wasn't anybody that had been left behind. All of that was done exactly the way you would want it to do. It was textbook performance.
Minor eruptions throughout the week set the stage. Wednesday's 40,000-foot mushroom cloud could be seen for miles, and the San Miguel Communications Complex received what could now be termed a relatively light sprinkling of ashfall. The ash started falling here in San Miguel around 9:30 a.m. The ground is covered with a sooty-type substance. It's a granular, sandy-type stuff. It's not as light or as flaky as you might expect the ash to be. To give you an example, the greens on the golf course look like sand traps. One man from Clark described a scene that would become very familiar in the days to come.
When we got the word, we saw the big cloud, and everybody came out to see it. It looked what you would picture a nuclear explosion going off as far as in the distance, and the cloud mushroomed up and then spread out, and it was all jagged and tumbling and rumbling toward us, of course, way up in the sky. And then we started getting little pellets of this stuff coming down, and the ones that were outside, when it landed on your skin, it burned you.
As it turned out, the mountain was just gathering up steam for her biggest outburst. Saturday morning, 600 years of dormant fury was unleashed as tons of ash exploded from the side of Mount Pinatubo. The eruption was large enough to send Clark's Mission Essential team running for cover on Mount Arayat, a dormant volcano about 10 miles from Clark.
Okay, what was the first thing that went through your mind when you saw the plume this morning and heard the sirens?
Oh God, this is a big one.
Okay.
It was pretty scary.
Do you feel that it's becoming routine now? Is your alertness down since this has been going on for the past week?
No, we've been trained real good, and each time we refine ourselves, and we really glad to get out of there this time because it was a pretty big one.
It's time to leave Clark Air Base.
But much further away, Subic Bay took an even harder hit. With Typhoon Yunya shifting the ash clouds toward the naval base, sunlight became a faint memory as the Bay Area spiraled into darkness around 10:30 a.m. The ash clouds and torrential rains blocked out the sun, and the afternoon became mired in a storm like none seen in the Republic before. Over 100 seismic tremors were counted on the afternoon of June 15th alone. Nearly a foot of ash fell on the unsuspecting facility, causing hundreds of buildings to buckle under. As Air Force and Navy personnel braved the storm together, people in the Bay Area found that bravery alone is not always enough to save lives. 2 dependents died Saturday afternoon when a roof collapsed at George Dewey High School. According to a Clark man also seeking shelter at Dewey, nothing could be done to save the 2 girls.
Myself, I ran to the far building over there, and people were running out, and they were screaming, they were yelling that the building had collapsed, there were people trapped. So me and about 3 other men went up there, and it took about 5 minutes to break the door down. Once we broke the door down, we able to get the people out, and then they said there were 2 little kids in there, and we went in looking for them. We found them, they were pinned, and there was nothing we could do.
Sunday morning, Subic residents and Clark evacuees ventured outside to view the mass destruction. Mother Nature had literally turned the base into a vast ash-covered wasteland. It seemed that no command went untouched. Sailors, airmen, Marines, and their families could only look back at Saturday's ordeal and hope it wouldn't happen again.
We didn't sleep at all, and the best thing was seeing daylight this morning. It was like, thank you, God. We made it through.
2 of our most vital functionaries took the hardest hits. The Naval Supply Depot lost scores of structures due to ashfall. The current cost estimated to repair the ship repair facility is $14 million. And as we'll see later in the program, the Public Works Center withstood devastating damage only to rise above it and restore power and water to the facility. NAS QB Point seemed to take the disaster in stride as they wasted very little time to return runways and hangars to almost full operation only days after the ashfall. Aside from their previous workload, QB Point is now tasked with MAC operations previously run from Clark Air Base. According to Captain Bruce Wood, NAS skipper, the catastrophe has only strengthened the resolve of QB sailors and Marines, and the air station's future, both immediate and long-term, looks very busy.
The next 6 months will be heavy into cargo operations and MAC operations. I think within probably 2 to 3 months, we'll see tactical airplanes coming back in here for traditional training. We'll see Marine Corps, Navy. We'll see probably some Air Force in here. We still have a tremendous capability here to train and support 7th Fleet, and I don't expect that mission to change at all, except I think it'll be far better than it was before just because of what we've gone through.
So, Christine, where were you that day the sky turned black?
Well, as a matter of fact, I was part of that Clark team that evacuated Mount Arayat that day.
One of the lucky ones. The impact that day had on our lives will stay fresh in everyone's memory and give us all some of our own war stories to tell our friends back home.
For many, the day to be remembered is when you had to wait in line for about 10 hours to get your family on a ship bound for Cebu. Petty Officer Darrell Ames has this story on the massive evacuation process.
Widespread damage to the dependent support infrastructure was the largest contributing factor in the decision to evacuate non-essential military and Department of Defense dependents. While standing in line at exchange outlets and waiting to be evacuated, everyone continued to get by with the most basic of necessities.
No electricity, no water, overcrowding. Overcrowding?
Yeah,
well, what about,
a lot of families.
What about water and food? Is that, well, you're standing in line here, what are some of the things you're going to try, hopefully you're going to get when you get
Charcoal to cook with. Yeah.
Charcoal to cook with?
Candles and new batteries.
And you out of candles?
Yeah,
so,
they burn down pretty quick.
So were you in the dark last night?
Pretty much. Well, the night that it was totally pitch black, I mean, we used up most of the candles then because it was black all day. You didn't know whether it was day or night.
The 7th Fleet immediately responded to the needs of the military community in the Philippines. Over 20 U.S. ships were instrumental in the safe and speedy transit of 18,600 evacuees. One of the first ships to arrive, the USS Abraham Lincoln, received busloads of anxious passengers that were immediately provided for upon arrival.
Okay, let me tag with you guys because I'm going to have to get some information from you so I can get you some lodging and some bed and the whole 9 yards. So I'm going to be with you until you get on the ship.
The Lincoln, the Navy's newest aircraft carrier, as well as the oldest carrier, the USS Midway, moved dependents to their first staging point at Cebu Island. From there, C-130 aircraft flew the evacuees to Guam. C-130s were also used in the evacuation process to move people to Cebu. The coordination of the combined military operation culminated at Cebu Island. Military Airlift Command aircraft worked around the clock to keep up with the continuous flow of evacuees. Into the night, families and non-essential personnel loaded on airplanes bound for Guam. One of the major concerns for the evacuees was that they were provided for once arriving in the States.
And they can also get 2 months advance pay right away, because a lot of these people are going to arrive back in the States without a lot of stuff and maybe without a lot of money, and so they're going to need that kind of help.
Joint repatriation teams set up at the point of entry in the United States provided evacuees with essential funds and necessities required prior to moving on to safe haven. Another helping hand was the American Red Cross.
We do have a 24-hour operation going here to keep the planes, the food going, the clothing, the diapers, the bottles, the nipples, the pacifiers to these children and families. It takes a lot of manpower. We've had a lot of volunteers come through that has been a great help.
Although things ran smoothly for those processing at the repatriation centers, many dependents expressed concern for those left behind.
Family back there, my brother, my sister, and plus the house, you know, they don't have a place to live. So it's kind of hard.
I'm hoping, even if I have the baby, there's some way that I can tell him that I've had the baby. There's no lines of communication open that I'm aware of right now. I miss my husband. I wish he was here.
This is a device for saving a valuable resource, our water. When one of these wears out, a faucet leaks, and replacing it saves water. This is another device for conserving water. By washing full loads, you use only as much water as you really need. And how much do you save? By using these 2 washers properly in your personal or military quarters, you save as much water in a year as these 2 window washers will use on this building. And that's no drop in the bucket.
It's been doubly hard for some of the military here who haven't seen their sons or daughters that were born during the last few months.
During the evacuation, 4 babies were born on U.S. Navy ships, and their fathers wait patiently for their families to return while the cleanup continues here in the Philippines.
Corporal Kyle Olson looks at the cleanup and recovery efforts at Clark, Subic, and QB Point.
With the dependents gone, thoughts could be better focused on the main task of getting the installations cleared of ash. Much debris had to be removed from various locations, doing everything from pulling down damaged buildings and shoveling rooftops to getting the runway at QB Point cleared off. It seemed like the main question was, where do we start?
What we're trying to do is not just clean it up, but to make it also look good, get the quality of life back up here. Because I think that is really motivating all of us to try and get Subic Bay back to a beautiful spot that it was prior to Mount Pinatubo, and certainly can be again.
Power and water were some of the first concerns. Housing areas went for several weeks before their services were restored, and even then, there were conservative measures that needed to be taken.
I think everybody has accepted the fact that this is not an easy thing to recover from, but everybody has jumped in and tightened their belt and moved things from one down structure to another. Haven't demanded, I want my power right now, and it's just going to take a little patience on everyone's part.
The damage from the volcano made it clear that we could no longer afford to keep Clark Air Base. And with most of Clark's personnel gone, never to return, packing out all of the household goods became yet another task that needed to be completed. Damage assessment teams were brought in to perform the laborious job of itemizing the valuables left behind in the service members' homes.
Well, we're looking for mildew, damaged items from the volcanoes and the typhoon, as well as listing high-value items. In the event that items are missing from your shipment, it's easier for you to substantiate those items if we've already had an itemized listing of those items.
The security police at Clark were put into an air-based ground defense posture, which placed the bulk of them on the ground, occupying terrain to shut down any theft problem.
We did this in conjunction with the Philippine Air Force, and we've been very successful as a joint defense force, and I'd like to underscore that fact because the PAF Security Police Group has been very effective in providing perimeter security in addition to our folks occupying the internal terrain.
Part of the cleanup effort at Clark meant getting rid of the merchandise from the damaged base exchange. At a reduction of 75% off everything in the store, it wasn't too hard to clear out the shelves.
We have no plans to open this store on a permanent basis. We just have it open to sell off what we have here on the sales floor.
Collapsed power buildings at Clark also caused some concern, but with the reduction of troops left at the installation, only part of the base needed to be supplied with power.
The biggest problem we had was the ash laying on the overhead lines. It's a great conductor, and when it was damp or wet, it would just ground out and trip all the feeders.
Meanwhile, in the Bay Area, getting all of the vehicles left behind by Clark personnel out of the country required a massive undertaking by military and civilians alike. With not enough keys for the vehicles, locksmiths and tow trucks had to move the autos so custom officials could inventory items left behind and do the proper procedures to get the vehicles shipped out. Removing the ash from the naval station was no small undertaking either. As ships filled with sailors and Marines came ashore to help the Bay Area dig out both on and off base, the USS Proteus and USNS Spica performed various Project Handclasp activities in surrounding communities, helping salvage furniture and books from a nearby elementary school and also providing fruit and water to local villages.
It's a good feeling. We get a really good reaction from all the Philippine people that come out, a lot of support. They are very appreciative of the things that we bring, and they're really good people. We enjoy helping them out.
We selected the most important jobs community-wise. We did the Christian Servicemen Center down in the Longapo. They also did the Philam Orphanage earlier. This was the next one in line.
I feel that it's real great because the people out here need the food and need the water, and it makes us, appreciate what we have, something that they don't have.
Back at Clark, helicopter operations resumed, providing support to various officials and volcanologists, aiding them to better check the conditions of Mount Pinatubo and the predominantly destructive possibilities that still pose a threat.
Well, we were supporting the volcano for 2 months before it erupted, so we were right in the middle of it then. So it's been exciting for the last 2-3 months. But now we fly up around it a lot. Not so much right now because of all the rainy season weather, but we do get to be right the leading edge, so to speak, of what's happening. So we have a good idea where the mud flows are, where the bridges are out, where all the ash damage is, things like that. So it's pretty exciting.
With more things opening up each day and lives getting back to a more normal pattern, there are still some things that people would like to see changed.
It's everybody's idea that before you bring back independence, you have to make sure that it's safe to do so and the quality of life is restored, and I think we're trying to work that as well as we can. I think we can be very proud of ourselves. We got a lot of work left to do, but it's been going extremely well, and we ought to all be happy for what's been done here.
Following a harrowing 24-hour period which included several earth tremors, Subic residents and evacuees from Clark ventured outside to witness the destruction.
Navy News This Week, I'm Sergeant Al Moore.
And I'm Petty Officer Quinn Litton. Thousands of American military families and civilian workers have been evacuated from Clark Air Base and Subic Naval Station in the Philippines. The mass evacuation was prompted by the eruption of Mount Pinatubo. The volcano has been spewing hot mud and ashes since June 10th. Clark Air Base was the first American installation threatened by the volcano.
As majestic Mount Pinatubo spewed its volcanic ash and lava, Americans at Clark Air Base received a 5 a.m. order to evacuate. U.S. military officials feared the volcano might explode at any moment, endangering the base only 10 miles away.
In the Philippines, Mount Pinatubo continues to erupt, leaving Clark Air Base closed, while Subic Naval Station tries to dig its way out.
Today's ashfall also hit the town of Olongapo with a vengeance. This is the home to Subic Bay Naval Base, where 15,000 American evacuees from Clark Field were supposed to be out of harm's way.
A plume of volcanic ash broods over a landscape devastated by a superheated mud flow, 600 yards beyond the perimeter of Clark Air Base.
Clearly not far enough. 50 buildings on the base have collapsed. 1 American was killed. Though not abandoned like Clark Airfield, Subic Bay is also effectively shut down.
The evacuation by ship of 20,000 American dependents was successfully completed yesterday afternoon, but not without events.
5,000 spouses, children, and assorted pets boarded American warships bound for the central Philippine city of Cebu, where they'll be.
You know, Ted, it's amazing to look around the base now and see how much progress has been made since the June 15th eruption.
That's right. The Clark and Subic communities rebounded faster than anyone thought. But looking ahead, the uncertain future of a U.S. presence in the Philippines still looms.
Navy journalist Bander Fisher has more.
Now that cleanup and recovery efforts for the U.S. facilities are well underway, one final question remains. How much longer can the U.S. military maintain a presence here? Officials on both sides have debated the issue for the past 14 months, struggling to come to terms before the lease runs out in September. The aftermath of Mount Pinatubo's destruction may have made that decision a bit easier for both governments, according to Special Negotiator Richard Armitage.
Well, it's quite clear that the disaster of Mount Pinatubo has brought a new reality into the negotiations. But I think that that new reality has also set in on our Filipino allies, our negotiating partners.
Talks drew to a close in mid-July.
Have a joint statement to read. Secretary of Foreign Affairs Raul S. Manglapus and Presidential Special Negotiator Richard L. Armitage have reached agreement on all major issues involved in the Philippine-American cooperation talks.
The agreement outlines a 10-year tenure for the Subic facility to begin next month. It also includes a 1-year cleanup and withdrawal period for Clark Air Base. Negotiators also scheduled the smaller installations to close next month. U.S. officials say the talks were a drawn-out and hard process, but worth the time and effort.
I'm satisfied. I am not pleased that we had to engage sometimes in histrionics, sometimes in dialogue, which I've described as rather intense and scratchy, and much of it public. I think it was a little unseemly to have to wash a lot of this laundry in public, but that's all behind us.
Though both negotiating teams agreed on the proposal, plans for the U.S. facilities hit another stumbling block. Questions regarding whether or not the Philippine Senate will support the new terms still remain at large. But an embassy spokesman says whatever happens, the U.S. still has other options to consider.
If the agreement is not ratified, the United States will abide by the Philippine Constitution, which makes it very clear that no foreign troops or bases can be allowed on Philippine territory except under an agreement duly agreed upon and ratified by the Philippine Senate and recognized as a treaty by the United States government. So indeed, if September 16th comes around without the agreement or with the agreement not being ratified, the United States will begin withdrawal from Subic Bay.
With the old lease soon expiring, there is pressure for both sides to come to a decision soon. The commander, U.S. Navy Philippines, hopes to continue a working friendship between the two governments and shows confidence in that friendship.
We will have an agreement, I believe, by mid-September, which will give us 10 years and time frame with much the same facilities that we've had here. We are essentially back without as much flexibility as we might have had in the past, but But I fully expect, even though it's going to be a very tough sell with the Philippine Senate, that we will have an agreement and that we will get a little bit of reconstruction money to return the capability to exactly what we had before.
Whether or not American military forces can remain in the Philippines is a question for upper-level government officials. In the meantime, the sailors, Marines, soldiers, and airmen still stationed in this country can look forward to working together with our Philippine host, whether it's for 10 years or just one.
In 1 month, this faucet will waste enough water to wash 8 loads of clothes, or to take 50 5-minute showers, or to fill 1,500 tall drinking glasses. And if this is hot water, the energy wasted to heat it could run 1 television 4 hours a day for 1.5 years. To learn how to get the leaks fixed, contact your local housing maintenance people and stop the drain on a valuable resource.
And that's a brief look back at the events that have affected all of our lives in the last 2 months.
We'd like to thank everyone who contributed to this special on Mount Pinatubo.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.